Hello everyone, welcome to Rosalia TV, O Mundo de Pilar Aymara. Today with Gareth Wardell, better known for all of us as Grouse. Gareth, you define yourself as an educationist, a writer, an essayist, a filmmaker, and much more. Thank you for your time. I was just checking your blog. Okay, I was checking your blog, and basically I thought today is the 275th anniversary of Culloden, and Gareth,
yes.
And Gareth is like an encyclopedia with legs. So I'm going to ask.
Well, I learned my Scottish history late, when I had to write screenplays, and for some of the screenplays that were not contemporary subjects, I chose historical events in Scotland, like the massacre of Glencoe, or something from the clearances, and I very quickly had to study hard for writing a script like Glencoe. Not only did I have to learn about the history of the clans that took part, but also about Scottish military regiments, and I had to learn how to write heightened language so that it was readily understood if the script was made into a film, but it sounded like the language that would have been spoken in those days. So it was a crash course.
Gareth, I was saying my first time in Scotland was in 2004.
Yes.
3 and 4, and things has changed a lot. So I was curious to know, because basically since 2011 the change was huge. So I'm curious to know how you analyze the change, the political change that the Scotland has gone through since 2011, 2014.
Well, it's changed quite a lot. The most disappointing change is the disillusionment that many people have suffered from the attitude and behaviour of the Scottish National Party, which everyone looked towards as the champions of Scotland's liberty. But once Alex Salmond, who is a first-class politician, a brilliant tactician, once he did the honourable thing and said, well, I didn't win the referendum, I lost by a small margin, so the honourable thing is to resign. And he handed over to his protege, Nicola Sturgeon. And we all thought, that's fine, she's dedicated to the cause of more civil and constitutional rights for Scotland. Give her time, she will develop into a statesperson. You know, she will show that she has acquired the skills of an agile politician. But regrettably, to my mind and my observation and all the evidence, that never happened. She found that she was out of her depth, and so she worked on projects and with people she felt comfortable with. And our independence, our autonomy, our self-governance has taken second or even third place. So that is disappointing. That could be altered by the electorate and by the supporters of the SNP. Because I think if you feel they are the only party you want to vote for, and you do vote for them, you have a duty to fix the SNP, to tell them to get things right and what their priorities are. It isn't a matter of, well, I believe in the SNP, I will put my X on the ballot paper and that's it, I don't have to worry about anything else. Well, you do. When you sign that ballot paper, you're actually signing a contract, a democratic contract with representatives that you have elected. Of course, the other worst thing is the far right regime of Boris Johnson and his corrupt cronies that have taken over Westminster, and they do not give a damn about democracy. They've proved that. They remind me a little the Conservative Party of the Republican Party in America. They don't pretend to be a party representing the people anymore. They're a kind of insurgency, you know. They are there to knock down old beliefs and tell people that wealth should rise to the top, because only wealthy people are clever people. So those two things have been disappointing.
Gareth, it looks like, well, I think that there is a deliberate attempt to cut in half the right to debate in a proper way. And there's a toxic atmosphere, especially in social network. Do you think the Yes movement needs to calm down and stay cool and be focused in the right to debate and the right to agree and disagree? What do you think is happening in social networks? It has something to do with that Brexit, all the Brexit debate?
Well, Brexit was a turning point for Scotland. If nothing had taught us in the past at how brutal the British state can be to keep hold of its territories, here was a moment where the British government realised it could throw off the European Union, or Johnny Foreigner, they call it. You know, my English cousins have always been suspicious of two things. One is foreigners, and the other one is intellectuals. That's been noticed for decades. So Brexit was the consummation of this xenophobia, and it taught Scotland that Westminster does not care anything for Scotland. It could ignore us. And the Tory party, I'm quite sure, sat round a table and said, if we pull out of Brexit, one of the dividends is we isolate Scotland. We can stop their trade to the west, to Ireland and America, and we can stop Scotland's trade to Europe, to the east. That means they have taken Scotland back to 1705, when they had ships blockading ports, so we could not trade with the Spanish or the French or the Dutch, you know, the Netherlands. So they've just repeated history again. Our Tory colonialists have a better grasp of history than some Scots, unfortunately. So now they can say, look, we're going to make Scotland poor because we're going to isolate it and block its international connections, and we're going to withdraw its powers. So although we, the British state, Westminster, Tory, Labour and Liberal politicians have been lying when we said Scotland was a poor nation, we're going to make it poor so that we can actually say, it's true. See, you are poor because we have all your money and we have all your power.
And about the toxicity of the debate, what do you think?
Well, you know, I'm somebody who's not greatly troubled by that. I know, for example, it's sometimes difficult to tell if someone is a real supporter of independence. They could easily be a unionist pretending, you know, that they are, and they are just stirring trouble on the internet. And the other thing I have to accept is that some people are very passionate in the way they put forward the way they express their opinions. You know, it means a lot to them, and so they are very hard and vociferous, and you just have to accept there are people like that, and there are people like me who are a bit more tolerant, you know, a bit more Italian, a bit more, you know, I'm half Sicilian, so a bit more laid back, you know, and okay, right, yeah, I understand, but let's think about it this way. But I too have got more intolerant because people are saying things they said in 2015 after the referendum. They're saying the same things, you know. We must wait to see what happens. And when that happens, we must wait to see what the repercussions are of what happens.
Yes,
then we will judge the repercussions, and then we will decide. And you say, no, that's not how you win your country.
You're an independent supporter, of course. So what would you like to see in Scotland?
What would I like to see in Scotland? See what happens. Well, one of the things I would like is that we get to keep all the money that we earn. That would be a very good start. Instead of the English government stealing all our oil from the North Sea, stealing our resources, taking, what, 85% of our taxes and giving us a small amount back as an allowance. That would be a very good start. That's the first thing. For decades, Scotland lived a false democracy. All our parties were unionist parties, and they would pretend to bang the table and say, we will not let Westminster do this to Scotland, you know, when they didn't mean that, you know, because they were just a branch of the London political party. And we assumed, we just accepted this is our democracy. We have three political parties who believe Scotland should be ruled and controlled in a colonial fashion by another country, by its neighbour. And then when the Scottish National Party finally achieved power against all the odds, we suddenly thought, hold on a minute, here's a party that is 100% for Scotland. And now that Alex Salmond has decided the Scottish National Party is indolent, it is procrastinating and avoiding educating the populace about the benefits of self-governance, he has returned to start a new party called Alaba, and he will keep the meaning of full civil and constitutional rights in the face of the electorate. That's what's been missing from the SNP for about 4 years. But you see, even if you're an independent supporter, you can still hold a colonial mentality. You might not know it, you might not understand what you are saying and doing, but when you say, I am going to ask Boris Johnson and the Tory party to give us a referendum, that's a colonial mentality. Please, can we have a referendum? I don't remember any of the great fighters for independence anywhere saying, I'm going to go to the government and I'm going to ask if they would give us our rights back. You have to demonstrate, you have to make the other side uncomfortable. You have to argue and shout. So the toxicity, to go back to your original question, yes, there is an element of that because people have had a belief in one party for independence. Now there are two. And then, of course, there are the infiltrators from, the British agents who are getting involved and stirring things up. And it takes a lot of experience of using social sites to spot them. I have a sixth sense now. I can tell sometimes by sentence construction that that person is a complete fraud.
Oh, well.
I
Gareth.
learned everything about Spain from my wife, you need to know, who
No,
is,
you told me. You told
who's
me.
a
I
wonderful
remember
painter.
we met. Yeah.
And she took
Fantastic
me to the
painter.
Alpujarras and to Barcelona, and she taught me all about Spanish culture. So I also had to have, as well as Scotland's history, I had to have a crash course in Catalonia, in Spanish government, you know.
Yeah.
And your great poet that Franco took out and shot. You know who I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
We know a lot about the lack of democracy. You know.
Unfortunately, yeah. But when they
Yeah.
took out your wonderful poet
Yeah.
and placed him against the wall, when I was training as a theatre director, because my skin is sallow and I had long black hair and black, my stubble was black. They made me act him and act one of his poems, passionate poems.
Uh-huh.
But it was very difficult to do that when I was still a virgin. Very difficult to be passionate when you have not been with a woman any time. I hope that doesn't embarrass you, but I like to speak
not
about
at
human
all. I
nature.
have no problem speaking about all these things. You know,
Well,
I think
I did not make a good Lorca. I tried my best to be Lorca, but
well, Garcia Lorca was in Santiago Compostela. You know, my
yeah,
cousin Carlos find a wee fragment of film, a historical fragment. That's amazing, you know. And of course, you will love speaking to my cousin Carlos. He's a passionate investigator and loves history, photos, historical photos, etc. So that would be, you know. But anyway, now with Alba, there's a lot of revolution in social networks. I understand it's a new thing, and I find it very interesting. You know, I'm trying to report on that because I think I've been there in all of the One Banner, Sons for Scotland, and a lot of events silenced by the mainstream media, as you well know. So I think now Alba is going to it's going to play an important part in the Scottish history. Maybe some cannot see that, but I can see that. So what's your view?
Oh, you're absolutely correct. Forgive me for interrupting. You're absolutely correct about that, because people will be able to compare what the Scottish National Party are saying on the one hand and what Alba is saying on the other. They will be able to compare the procrastination, the inertia of the SNP against Alba's urgency and robust arguments that you do not get liberty by sitting down and waiting for the time to be right. You have to cause it to happen.
Gareth, last question, and I want you to send a message to your fellow Scots.
I would like to tell them that a Scotland that they governed would be a better Scotland for them, even if they did not want independence, because they will be standing on their own 2 feet. They will be making their own decisions and living by those decisions. And they might find life is happier when you are an adult and a serious person, and not children in a kindergarten that is managed by your neighbour, and they keep all the profit from it.
Well, Gareth, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
I would wish to be back in Spain, but I don't know if that will happen. And I miss Barcelona.
You miss Barcelona, yeah. But you have to visit Santiago de Compostela. I'm in Santiago de Compostela, so if you can make it, I'll be here waiting for you.
Thank you. A lovely welcome. Thank you for inviting me.